So let's dive into the book, because you mentioned already a couple of artists, and luckily I grew up in a city called Dortmund, which was more in the center of Western Germany at that time. And we had an arena where most of these 70s and early 80s rock stars played, and I was lucky to at least see them live, including like Zeppelin and AC/DC with Bon Scott, and of course with Brian then later on. But you've witnessed some events in rock history, which I'm really, really jealous of. And I would like to talk just a couple of minutes about these events, about your rememberings and memories about this. And I want to start with the US Festival, where I recall that was one of the biggest festival ever happened in San Bernardino in a valley, which was somehow organized by Steve Wozniak, the Apple founder. Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the second one. I believe it was the second one. I think the year before they had more pop artists.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think this is the first year that they had heavy metal artists. And yeah, it was, you know, when Mötley Crüe, I went there with Ozzy. You know, anytime Ozzy would play somewhere, they'd want me to go, and they would get me a backstage pass, pretty easy, you know. At that point, I already developed my relationship with Ozzy, and I was like his photographer. So yeah, so you're walking around and there's Mötley Crüe walking to the stage with a bottle of, you know, Jack in their hands. And I just, you know, whip my camera around and start shooting, following them in. I shot them the year before for We Magazine. So they knew me. I haven't seen them since. So all of a sudden, hey, Weissguy, how's it going? You know, so, you know, it's like all of a sudden there's that. And then there's Judas Priest over on the other side walking around. So everyone's like, you know, walking around and going to stage. But when Mötley Crüe hit the stage, you know, I mean, no one even knew who they were. You know, they were a club band pretty much. You know, in California they were starting to get known, but you know, not to those 300,000 plus people. So when they started doing, I think it was Shout at the Devil. I don't think they ever even played it live, and no one even knew it, but people were chanting it, like, you know, and
Really?
it's like, it was like one of their moments, you know. And you know, I captured, you know, here's a little bit from the US Festival right here in the book. Show you. So there's Tommy looking at the 300,000, and there we go.
Oh, great.
And
I think in the Dirt movie and in the Dirt books, they described this scenery also from their perspective. US Festival as well.
Yes, yeah. It was a moment in Motley history for sure.
Crazy.
And then Quiet Riot, you know, like I think 3 months later they were #1 on the Billboard charts, you know, which was a game changer for everybody and all the record companies. And that's when everyone started getting signed, you know.
So maybe this festival, this specific event, really broke heavy metal in the US for a certain point, because it made all these bands so big.
Yeah, I mean, Ozzy was already big. I mean, all the bands were the only ones that weren't big really were Quiet Riot and Mötley Crüe. And those are the two bands that broke out. So those were new bands. And because there were new bands, record companies like, we got to find some more of these new bands. And then, you know, and they started signing all these other bands that had the formula.
I spoke with Rudolf Schenker about the US Festival a couple of years ago, and he told me the story when they entered the stage that the starfighters flew over them, the airplanes.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
And he still didn't know how they organized it, that it's exactly in that moment when Scorpions entered the stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, crazy.
By the way, almost the same lineup which you had at the US Festival came half a year later to an indoor festival in the arena where I obviously grew up. It was Ozzy, Leopard, Scorpions, Maiden, Schenker, Crocus, Quiet Riot, and this really broke heavy metal in Germany. So this was the US Festival, but later on you saw some other events which were really remarkable. And I recall you went to Live Aid in the US.
Yep, that was another one that, you know, I found out Black Sabbath was going to reunite there, you know, and I called, you know, Sharon and Ozzy, and they said, yep, come on down, you know. And that was another thing that was really amazing, because here's Black Sabbath in the middle of like Madonna and, you know, the Rolling Stones with Tina Turner, you know. So That was a trip. And I remember I was backstage, and Jack Nicholson was one of the hosts, announced one of the bands, and there was a sign on his door. It said Jack Nicholson. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool, you know? And then he popped his head out, you know, he started walking out. So it was right next to the Black Sabbath dressing room. So I went over to him and I said, hey, I'm Black Sabbath's photographer. My name's Mark, you know, you mind if I take a picture? And he's like, yeah, sure, kid. And he took a cigarette and he put it in his mouth, and, you know, and I got a nice portrait of him with it, you know, so that's not in the book, but it was in the book originally, but I had to pull it, you know.
Typical Jack Nicholson pose.
It was good. It was the smile, and he had the sunglasses, and yeah, kid, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, take it. You know, because you have to, some people, they don't ask, you know, and they just take it, and then it ends up being like a paparazzi shot.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
You have to give them respect too. I mean, you know, he could have said no, but he was, you know, he was in a good mood. I mean, everyone, you know, those kind of events, everyone is like, you know, they're there for a reason. It's there for the good of, you know, what the foundation was for. So it's kind of hard to say no.
Another event which was not so popular, but for the metal history, one of the, I think the biggest recording was the Hear and 8 thing with the Stars, with Ronnie.
Yeah.
So how did you manage to go there?
Well, I mean, I developed a relationship with Ronnie when he was in Black Sabbath in 1980 when that first came out, and I started becoming their photographer as well. And then, you know, I just stuck with him with whatever he did, and I was, you know, friendly with them, with Ronnie and with Wendy, and I would do the publicity photographs when they needed band photos and new photos. So, of course, when this happened, you know, Wendy gave me a call and said, you know, I have something special that you need to come out to LA for. So, you know, she didn't really have to say much, you know, and when I went there and all my buddies were there, it was, you know, it's amazing, you know, and that one photograph with everybody, you know, and it was an honor to be there. And then they even let me take photographs in the recording studio, you know, so I have shots of, you know, Rob Halford doing his vocal line, and Don Dokken, and Jeff Tate from Queensryche, which ended up being a spread. Like these photographs, like that spread started out being like 6 pages, and I had to just, you know, turn it into, actually, I had to fight for 2 extra. They wanted it to be 2 pages, and I ended up getting 4 out of it. So, you know, we went back and forth until, you know, everything made sense.
I had the luck to interview Ronnie a couple of years later, and he signed me the original single, a 12-inch. And,
Wow.
you know, it was at a festival in Germany where I did an interview with him, and sadly, short after he passed away. And I said to myself, I want to have all the signatures of all the living artists. And I would say I'm at 80% already. And it was, of course, was great to meet all the guys and to have a talk. I talked with Vince Neil about this situation also, whom I met also later on at Wacken. And he got signed here as well. But this is a very remarkable thing. Can you show us some pictures from the session? Do you have it handy?
Yeah.
By the way, guys, the book is for sale. I'll tell you later.
Okay, yeah. Well, here's that photo I was telling you about. Here's a couple of things.
Oh, great. Yeah. Wow.
No one's ever seen them. That's like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I had to dust off the negatives.
Amazing.
Here's the photos of them recording.
Yeah, I remember the scene from the video where every individual is singing in the studio, and everybody doing his line, 1 or 2 sentences. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And the last event, which was more or less at the end of that century, was also something very special, was the Moscow Love and Peace Festival.
Right.
Because this was something really new, because there wasn't anything before in the Eastern Bloc, I recall. Because at that time there was, you know, the world was divided into 2 parts, and heavy metal was, I think it was big in Russia, but not really promoted there. And it was Doc McGee who made it happen. And you were there as well.
Yeah, I actually went there the year before with John and Doc and the band in the wintertime. And we met.
I saw the pictures. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We met all the dignitaries, and that was a trip because we were treated like royalty, you know. And I was there documenting. We actually went into the stadium where the concert ended up being, but it was just snow all around. Everyone's wearing the coats. So it was kind of fun to, you know, go there like that. That's how Russia's known for, this cold weather.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, and then we went in the summer, of course, and it was, you know, beautiful, and, you know, it was very nice, you know, so.
And you all the US artists came with the same plane?
Yes, yeah, I believe we started in America. I think we stopped in England to pick up the Scorpions. I think that's what we did. I don't really remember, but we were all on it eventually, and we all were having fun on the plane. You know, it was supposed to be like no drinking or anything, but there was drinking. And at the end of the trip, I mean, there was, you know, John Bon Jovi was playing with Richie and Tom Kiefer and Jason Bonham, Jason, all singing around, you know, with acoustic and, you know, jamming in the middle, you know, midair. And, you know, there'd be, you know, Sebastian would be lying on the floor underneath the seats, you know, passed out. You know, I remember, like, you know, the stewardess like walking over his leg, you know. So it was fun.
That's just really crazy. Really
and
crazy.
then when we arrived, you know, everyone's starting to go off. I said, wait, hold on, you know, let me go down there and set it up, you know. So me and some other photographers ended up on the bottom of the, you know, where they exit the plane, and they kind of walked down. And I really got one image that was real special to me. It kind of says it all for things that were to happen. I think Ozzy was in the front, scratching his head, and then there was Vince, and there was John and Richie with the peace thing. So you have to look at the photo, but there's a lot because a lot of shenanigans went on, and a lot of things happened between like Mötley and Bon Jovi that's everyone's aware of. You know, they had some friction going on because of the pyro and things, and Doc, you know, being, you know, fighting. There was some fights and all that. So I'm just glad to capture that moment. And then after that, I had everyone go up on an area where they were all like lined up in a row, and I just, you know, got them. Peter Max, actually, who's a famous artist, did the artwork on the plane and also the official posters. So I put him in the middle, and he gave the classic peace sign, and that was so that's in the book too.